We want to talk this morning about something that's very dear to those of us who are black Americans and to those who are people of goodwill in general, and it's called freedom. And anytime black people think about freedom today, they always think about one person in particular, because he is one who is remembered as the one who made the great sacrifice of freedom. He gave his life. And that person is none other than Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
This is where the battle for civil rights began, in the heart of America's Deep South, Montgomery, Alabama. Today, the city's 40% black population celebrate Thanksgiving, whilst the city's white community is notable by its absence. Montgomery is the capital city of Alabama, the poorest state in the Union. 20 years after Martin Luther King's death, what exactly have the years of struggle achieved for the city's black community? It was here in 1955 that a boycott against the segregated bus system united the entire black community in protest. Every day, in the face of intimidation, thousands of black people walked to school, to church, to jobs across the city.
I remember one day carrying some people to work one morning, and it was raining. I don't mean just drizzling, but it was pouring down rain. And you would ask, "Well, don't you want to ride?" "No, I'll walk." Just walking in the rain and just so happy that they were, staying off the bus in protest of what was going on. And it was a spirit then that is not existent now, but it was a spirit then of cooperation among the people in the community, and it was really great.
It was that spirit that kept the boycott going for 381 days until the federal court decreed that the buses in Montgomery be desegregated. It was the first challenge to a deep-seated system of apartheid, the first step in many years of legal struggles that won equal access to parks, transport, waiting rooms, schools, jobs, housing, and political power. Ironically, it also hit the black community where they least expected it.
One of the major effects in the desegregation period is that a lot of blacks lost their business, because once desegregation came about, you had the problem of blacks feeling that because it was white, it was better. And that means that the small business that had been on, the corner grocery store and the cafe and the service station and all of those places that blacks own, and there were quite a few of them. Even there were a black bank right here in Montgomery. But those places started to close because blacks started to go into white businesses. We are third generation in business. We are not a first generation. That's the advantage that we probably had over a lot of blacks that would go in business at this point being first generation. And that's very important.
Howard Brothers is one of the few black businesses that survive. 70% of all black businesses in Montgomery fail. Today there are only 5 with a turnover of more than $1 million in the city. There are over 70 owned by whites. It is still overwhelmingly a white economy.
The whites control it, and they control it to the point where they can control you. See, they control the money, and they know how to put control on black businesses, because they know if you don't have the money, you can't survive.
No problem.
Once you go in business, it looks good. People in the community are encouraged by it. But once you fail, that same person who are looking at you and encouraged by it, destroy it. Now, they look at the total destruction of you. You lose your house, you lose your car, sometimes the family break up, and that is the most devastating thing anybody could happen to them. Anytime you have high unemployment, despair sits in. And when you have young people of 40, 45, 51% unemployment in a community, a person gets 21 to 22 years old and never had a job, despair sits in. He's got to wait on a welfare check or a food stamp to keep him, or some type of housing program to keep him in a place locked in. He just don't see how in the world that he can change his life where it can be more promising to him. So you got drugs and alcohol and lawlessness and violence and black-on-black crime because you're locked into a community that's going nowhere.
When I get up in the morning, sometimes I get up, cut on the TV, I put on the radio, I go up the street and shoot some basketball, and come on back home. I go looking for a job a lot. I can put in about 40 applications. Just applications. Everywhere I go with my friend, I tell them stop here, there. I go to the mall, just go right down the whole line, sign application. Go to the employment office, still no answer. I ain't been working about 6 months, something like that. If I was white, going out and signing all the applications, I'd have been had a job. That's how I feel, I don't know. If the future look like this, I don't think I can make it, tell the truth, from my point of view. Because everybody need a job. Everybody needs some kind of income. And I ain't got that right now, so if I be like this, it'll be rough. I ain't gonna go steady nothing though. But I will be thinking about it, cause can't help but to think about money.
Is it good?
Black unemployment is twice the rate of white unemployment in America. Black women in Alabama are amongst the lowest paid groups in the country. On average, they earn half the rate of men for the same job. Inevitably, more blacks depend on welfare.
I do not like being on welfare. I've never wanted a handout. I've always wanted to make my own way for me and my children so that I can be proud of what I did. And whenever someone would ask me, well, where is it that you work at, or how is it that you survive, I'd never just say welfare because I'm ashamed of it. I honestly and truly am.
After 2 years training as a computer programmer, Paget Carlis graduated top of her class. She has never been able to find a job in her profession.
See, this doesn't look like almost where she lives. You can't tell this is close.
I guess I had the same idea as the white people have, that, we just want everybody to give us everything, and it's not true. Because I am on food stamps, but I don't want to be on food stamps. I don't want to be on welfare, and I don't want to have Medicaid. I want to have my own job to pay for everything that I want so that I can be proud of it.
There you go. You like your French fry?
When I worked at Burger King, we had a very big discrimination thing going on, whereas one of the managers had mentioned that some of the customers had been complaining about so many black faces being in there, and it was basically on the white side of town, so you would have that to happen. And when they decided to get rid of some of those black faces, I was one of the first black faces that they got rid of. I think it was something like maybe over 11 people that were dismissed within a 2-month period, and they had been replaced by nothing but white people. And I felt that we should do something about it. So I had even gotten media coverage and all set up, and I tried to contact the people and say, hey, you know, I have a lawyer, we can fight this thing. And they just didn't want to do anything about it. They don't really realize that the rights that we have, we've not always had. They don't realize that our parents and our grandparents had to fight for those rights. And I guess they don't realize that they can lose them. I think it's very important for a person to make a stand on something, because if it hadn't been for Dr. Martin Luther King making the stand saying we are not going to ride in the back of the bus, we would still be riding in the back of the bus. And it's going to have to take one person to get the ball rolling. If nobody's going to do it, then it's never going to change. You're going to have to demand that things not be the same in order for things to change.
Who is our leader? Dr. King. Who is our leader? Dr. King. God bless you.
We're on the move now.
Yes, sir.
The bombing of our homes will not dissuade us.
You hear it?
We're on the move now.
Yes, sir.
The beating and killing of our clergymen and young people will not divert us. We're on the move now.
Yes, sir.
The wanton release of their known murderers will not discourage us. We're on the move now.
Yes, sir.
Like an idea whose time has come.
Yes, sir.
Not even the marching of mighty armies can halt us.
Yes, sir.
We are moving to the land of freedom.
Yes, sir.
But Martin came with a plan, and he convinced us that freedom was worth dying for, the ultimate. And he was able to sell the idea. People bought it, and it improved us. It improved black people in this nation.
I know that is a cry today in Alabama. We see it in numerous editorials. When will Martin Luther King, SCLC, SNCC, and all of these civil rights agitators and all of the white clergymen and labor leaders and students and others get out of our community and let Alabama return to normalcy? I have a message that I would like to leave with Alabama this evening. That is exactly what we don't want, and we will not allow it to happen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It is normalcy all over our country.
Yes, sir.
Which leaves the Negro perishing on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. It is normalcy all over Alabama that prevents the Negro from becoming a registered voter. No, we will not allow Alabama to return to normalcy.
You could sit in front of him and listen and speak, and your whole body just start to uplift. The hair on your head start to move, you know, just kind of feeling that he could give you like nobody else. And we've been in Baptist churches and Methodist churches where there was a lot of hair-raising sermons on Sunday morning. But when Martin Luther King spoke, he had the power to move people. And he needed that power because nobody was going to follow a person that they didn't believe in, because there were other leaders of civil rights before that period. But nobody could generate the enthusiasm to get people to believe in them enough to face a non-violent movement that they know were going to be violent from the other end.
We are here to say that this march does not continue.
The rap, you see, I'm gonna steal the show. I'm 6 feet 4, I'm worse than hell. I thought LCJ had to rock the bell. Well, Run DMC, they said they're the best, but let me tell you one thing. I live in the West, why I came in the park to see what's going on. Ain't shit I am, so I'm finna go home. Listen for the people while I'm in this place, and let me tell you one thing, I'm bringing out the bass. I'm the best young rapper that you ever heard. I said my name is Maurice, I'm not Larry Bird. I'm not Dr. J.R.A.C. Green, but when I'm on
In spite of some improvements, blacks in America are worse off economically than they were in the 60s. And in Alabama in particular, poverty amongst blacks is widespread. One indicator is the high rate of infant deaths. More black babies die in their infancy here than anywhere else in America.
Keep your bills down year-round by calling Bill Bradley Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, your certified Alabama Power Heat Pump dealer.
Pro Action Sporting Goods has your Christmas list complete. The best selection of Auburn and Alabama sweatsuits and T-shirts. So support your favorite team. Show your colors.
All right, who was it, Masked Man? Doctor's here. Let's go ahead and start up another non-stop continuous music power hour at Power Hits Y102.
Montgomery is still segregated as a city, racially segregated. Traditionally, Montgomery's west side has been the home of its black community, while its east side has been the home of its white community. The black businesses, the black schools, the black neighborhoods, and most of the black social life has occurred on the west side of the city. And predictably, the growth that has occurred in Montgomery over the last 20 years has been an eastward growth. But the last 10 years have seen a rather substantial migration of whites who lived on the west side of the city to the east side. The west side lost its last hospital 3 years ago. So now all of the hospitals in Montgomery are on the east side of town. All of the universities, including the Black University in Montgomery, are on the east side of town. And we have almost reached a point where all of the substantial shopping areas in town are on its east side. When I first moved into my home in 1975, our neighborhood was substantially integrated. A good sampling or mix of whites and blacks on my block as well as in the neighborhood in general. Through the years, whites have left my neighborhood and moved to other neighborhoods that are predominantly white or all white, because they do not want to live in black communities. In Montgomery, there is a feeling among whites not only that they do not wish to associate with blacks too much, but as well that even if they do, they don't want to suffer the ostracism by their peers, by their former associates and friends, if they do.
Even the cultural centres in Montgomery have been developed on the white side of town. An exact replica of the Shakespeare Theatre at Stratford-on-Avon has been built alongside a new museum in lush parkland on the city's east side. It is 8 miles from the black neighbourhoods.
It is a great pleasure that the Mystic Order of Minerva presents the season's debutantes. Miss Caroline Bentley Moore, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Jerome Tanner Moore, Jr., sponsored by her father. Her escort is Noble Crump Yelverton. The first dance is for you, your sponsors, and your escorts. Now we say to these young ladies that the Mystic Order of Minerva congratulates you on your achievements and is proud to include you in the social life of Montgomery.
I view economic expansion and movement of free people in a free society as their own business. People move where they will and where they can afford. Business moves where it expects to make a profit. I find it no business of government to regulate that a certain number of people will live in West Montgomery and a certain number will live in East Montgomery. It is the city's job to see that growth is reasonably controlled, that water and sewer and adequate streets and so forth are prepared. It is not a function of government, in my opinion, to regulate a certain number of people who live in a certain section of the community. I'm glad that Montgomery is growing. I'm glad that Montgomery is prospering in whichever direction it chooses to grow. We don't live in Russia. This is the United States of America, and free people can go where they please.
Yes, we're going to work until and we're going to keep on bombing, and we're going to keep on killing.
This firearm simulator is a state-of-the-art. This, in my judgment, was the finest training device for shoot or no shoot. Actually, that was in the kill zone.
Hunter, at this point, if I could ask you why you did shoot.
She clearly displayed a weapon, and something had to be done in zero-time reaction, lest a 30-round mag from the Uzi be fired at us all. There's no question that one had to be taken out. Very good. I say law and order is the essence of civilization. Without law and order and without the ability to move about in peace and safety, nothing you have is any good. You can have the finest museums, libraries, public buildings, events, or whatever, and if people are afraid to move about on their streets or afraid for their persons or property, it availeth nothing. So I think law and order is a very, very important part of a growing, prosperous city.
The mayor was dubbed by the federal court recently as a, quote, super chief, close quote. He was charged with using the police force as his own private army or militia. He was charged with having what I think the court called an intimate relationship and an intimate working knowledge of the day-to-day goings-on in the police department. There is no question but that the police department is the mayor's police department. There is little question but that the police officers regard him as their commander-in-chief in every sense of the word. There is little question but that promotional opportunities in the Montgomery Police Department are directly related to the favor in which one finds himself with the mayor of the city.
The main problem that exists with the police department in a situation like this is the fact that the large number of crime that is committed in the city of Montgomery is committed black on black. And the police respond and have more opportunities for confrontation with blacks than they do with whites because the vast majority of crime is committed in the black neighborhood, therefore the response, therefore the possibility of a confrontation.
Go ahead and get out here, 214.
Saturday night in Montgomery's Black West Side, and a routine police action, a cocaine bust. 70% of black crime is said to be drug-related.
Money? Yeah. Where your money at?
On that dress, he put it in.
All right. We'll get it. Sit down right there.
You don't have any more? Okay, look like you got some kind of white powder right around your nose. Don't let it here. Don't do that.
I was standing at the door.
What an idiot. What an idiot.
The man said, yo, what's
We'll get these out here.
Okay. What you have, Mike? Nothing, sir. Nothing? You sure? Yeah, positive. What's the real car out there, Mike? Nothing, sir. Nothing.
Some of the officers in the police force involved are black. It took a legal action to force the Montgomery Police Department to take blacks on.
When the Montgomery Police Department initially hired black police officers in the early 60s, those officers were permitted to arrest only black people and to cite only black people, to give only black people traffic tickets. Not whites. They were specifically disallowed from doing that. Later on, they became good enough to arrest whites. Until recently, there was a pattern in the Montgomery Police Department of not arresting white women found driving under the influence, but rather driving them home or taking them to the police station and calling their spouses or members of their families to pick them up. while blacks, male and female, who were found driving under the influence, were routinely arrested and charged with such. That's the kind of institutionalized racism and discrimination that has perpetuated the unequal treatment of blacks by the police department.
I think we start off simply by looking at the reality that slavery happened in this nation, and oppression followed that for many, many generations. And it's like, the aftermath of a storm. If a storm comes through a community at night and you walk out the next morning, there's debris, there's broken things, etc. There's a result of that storm. And slavery and oppression was a violent storm in our community, and there's a residue. Now, what we do as black people and what white people do is like we want to start off as though it's the next morning and there was no storm the night before, and there's no need to look at the debris, to clean it up, to deal with it. And specifically, the result of oppression and slavery was to cause or to encourage or to train the minds of black people to emulate white people. In other words, to try to be like white people, to have our hair, our features, our homes, our speech, and everything, to be like white people, to kind of disappear into whiteness. That has been what we were encouraged to do.
Mommy's not gonna go anywhere. Mommy's not gonna go anywhere. Where's Mommy go?
When I first thought about having kids of my own, I had no idea that the world was like it is. I thought that my little girl would have blonde hair and blue eyes, and she would be so beautiful. Her name would be Chrissy, and everything would be just fantastic. But, life has just taught me, hey, there's no way that this is possible. Hey, chick, you're black and you can't do that. But I still want them to have the benefits as if they had the blonde hair and the blue eyes or the fair skin. It shouldn't be based on what you look like, the color of your skin. It should be based on what you're capable of. And a lot of people don't believe that, but that is really the way that it is.
I believe that whites see blacks as even more competitors than they used to, because the only obstacles or hurdles left now are those that really and truly matter in a capitalistic society, and that is the economic hurdle and the political hurdle, because those are the two main routes in America to power, money and politics.
Channel 12, WSFA, Montgomery.
Mayor Fulmer says he's enjoyed 12 years of service to the city, and he wants to continue his hard work, providing the best city services available and recruiting new industry for the capital city. The mayor says it's a pleasure to work for Montgomery, and if the results of the election are any indication, Montgomeryans want to keep him at City Hall.
I want to thank my family.
The face of political power in Montgomery is still predominantly white. Mayor Emery Fulmer, who once ran in the race for state governor against George Wallace, recently took 70% of the votes in the city's elections.
Wait a minute now, you have to wait your turn.
During the campaign, I had the opportunity to look at some things, such as return of revenue in terms of city services to the black districts. And I got the serious feeling that we truly did not get anywhere near our fair share. And I wondered why this had not been brought out to us by our black leaders prior to even election time.
Montgomery City Council now has 6 white councillors and 4 black, reflecting the 60-40 racial division in the city. The council has always been chaired by a white president. Successful property developer Joe Reed, dubbed by some as the Black Mayor of Montgomery, has led the black group for the last 13 years. Recently, increasing criticism of the black political power structure has come from a new generation of grassroots politicians.
When our Mayor Emory Fulmer gave blanket endorsement to all council people who were currently serving, he and Joe Reed, for example, used to be at serious odds. At serious odds. There was a serious confrontation in almost every council meeting. And all of a sudden they get along well now, to the point where the mayor even wants him to come back. I find that very strange. Republican mayor, patriarch of the black Democrats of Alabama, I find that extremely strange.
I'm elated over what we have been able to do. I'm gratified, but I'm not satisfied. I'm gratified to the extent that many things that the black community was not getting, of course, and better streets, better sidewalks, better garbage pickup, better recreation facilities. These things we can point to with pride and say we have achieved these things. On the other hand, I am still concerned that we don't have enough blacks in city government. We don't have enough blacks on various commissions and committees functioning.
So when one says to me, you know, the number of black elected officials is just absolutely high in this state, I said, well, you know, that's good for the black elected officials. You know, but what about the rest of the black folk who live in the state? You know, is the quality of life any better? Are we as poor, are we richer than we were 25 years ago? How do we compare in terms of income, in terms of all other kinds of measurable levels of quality of life with white folk in the state? You know, if our comparison has not changed as dramatically as the numbers of black leaders that we have, then we have to assume that black leaders have been ineffective in dealing with the problems and improving the quality of life of black Montgomeryans.
Give us the ballot, and we will no longer have to worry as a federal government about our basic rights. Give us the ballot. We will, by the power of our vote, write the law on the statute books of the South and bring an end to the dastardly acts of the hooded perpetrators of violence. Give us the ballot.
30 years after this speech in Montgomery's local elections, less than 20% of blacks came out to vote.
I think it is the job of black leadership to make sure that if any other group of folk in this city are apathetic about voting, the one group that ought not to ever be apathetic is black folk, because they ought not to ever let us forget that Dr. King died, and that Dr. King was not nearly the only one who died for that right for us to vote. You know, and I promise you, since I became a registered voter in Montgomery, I've never missed an election. And it's almost as if I'm committing a sacrilege if I even consider not going to the polls, because I won't ever forget that there was a time when they didn't want me to vote, that they gave tests that none of them could pass to make sure that I didn't vote. You know, I don't forget that there are, you know, people of goodwill of all colors who actually suffered and died for me to vote. And it's almost as if I renege on the movement. You know, it's as if I truly forget all of the suffering when I forget to vote.
Voter apathy amongst blacks may be a sign of the times in Montgomery today, but in the last 2 decades, the most powerful challenge to racism has come through the courts. Every department of Montgomery City Council has been successfully sued for race discrimination.
I believe that the seat of the struggle in the future remains essentially in the courts. For a lot of reasons, I don't think that the kind of street action that we saw in the 60s and 70s will have the same impact. It's no longer as necessary because much of that movement was designed to get people on the inside. Now we have people on the inside. We have 24 blacks in the Alabama legislature, and that story is repeated all across the Southeast. And of course, that kind of activity isn't going to be persuasive on them because many of them were people who were once there. So I think it's in the halls of justice wherever they may be found.
Even doctor's degrees in some instances come in and are paid more money.
You can't legislate love, and it really takes love and understanding in things to make things work like it should. The desegregation of the schools, the integration of anything was not done on a goodwill basis. It all came by court orders. And anything that's done by court orders is never like it's something that's done on a voluntary basis.
I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama with its vicious races, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
I attend Jefferson Davis High School. It's on, I guess you'd say, the east side of town. It's like 60-40 percentage white to black. And I guess you could say one of the better schools. Majority-minority ruling is a program set up. I guess its main goal is to integrate the schools. Maybe all in the South, mainly Montgomery is what I'm familiar with. And a person that's black can fill out a form and attend a majority white school if that's the school of their choice. Because of the number of students there are, like public buses, to take them to the schools that they've chosen. It's really a great effort. Minority majority is really a great effort to integrate all schools by, like, the kid's choice. Racism hasn't been a major problem for me. I mean, I cannot say that I've been here and haven't seen it at all. But I've mainly seen it affect others more so than myself, which is really kind of rough, you know, watching some of my friends have problems with different teachers or different people and different organizations that they feel have blocks against certain races. My friends, being a part of student government and different organizations, my friends are black and white. In your classes, you have mixed classes, so you make friends within your classes. So your friends should, if you're open to, you know, to all people, your friends should be black and white here, as mine are. But some people, you know, just don't let that happen. And I have to tell you, truthfully, my closest friends are black. And that's mainly because, I guess it's not my barriers, it's just, you can't force anybody to be your friend. So most of my friends are mixed, but the closest ones are black. I think Martin Luther King expected my generation to be open as we are and really just optimistic towards the future generations. I feel that people will grow out of racism, I guess you could say. Not saying that, you know, tomorrow someone that was racist today will be okay, but I'm saying in further generations, I think you see kids now and they play together not knowing what black and white is. So I think if their parents would, you know, not leave them alone, but not exactly spread their narrow ideas, that these children will grow up with the same ideas, that there's no difference between black and white, which there isn't. So I believe that my optimism stands in the children and the children of tomorrow, that they'll just keep the attitudes they have right now, because I've watched them before and I've seen that children really don't know what racism is, and not knowing, how can they be racist?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Faith in the Children of Tomorrow has inspired a group of nurseries on the Black West Side, part of a federation of childcare fired by a new ideal and a new vision.
There are some things that we know about child care, at least we feel very strongly. One is that you can make a very powerful impact on the person at that very impressionable age. So we are starting at a place where that can really be a measurable effect on a person. And two, we're starting with a given, and that is that there's care and concern and so forth. And from that, we find that it's an area for us to practice. It's an area in which we can learn how to deal politically, how to deal economically. For early childhood programs are small businesses. So child daycare is really a very broad program for a lot of things to happen.
Let's say it again. Everybody look at the board. I am special. When you say I, you're talking about yourselves. What about you? You're what? What, baby? You are special. Now, I wonder if anybody knows what we are talking about when we say special. This is my special sweater. I am special. These are my special glasses. What are we talking about when we say special? You're special. Do you know what this word is?
Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Within 24 hours, Martin Luther King was assassinated.
I was right there beside him. I was the first person to take these 3 or 4 steps out on the balcony, and I said to him, Martin, it will be all right. And I patted his cheek, and so consequently he became calm, and when Andrew Young got up the steps and said, "Oh God, Ralph, it is over," I became angry with him, and because I didn't want Dr. King to hear anything that was not positive and good, and he was just a bosom buddy.
He had a dream that one day we would do away with poverty in this country. The richest nation in the world would stop dealing in the area of foreign aid until it had first taken care of home aid. This was his dream. And one day they looked up and saw him coming and said, "We have taken it long enough." And they decided that they would kill the dream by killing the dreamer. And they shot him down in Memphis, Tennessee. But I want to tell you this morning that they didn't stop the dream, because they left behind his disciples.
I'm going through. I'm going through.
I think he was gotten rid of by a conspiracy. The evil forces of this nation in high places, the FBI under Hoover, and who hated Dr. King, and these forces decided that Dr. King had gone too far, because he was organizing the Poor People's Campaign. He was bringing black and whites, brown, red, and yellow people all together. And that was too powerful for the American scene to endure.
The white economic structure did not want Martin to start talking about money. It was very easy for some people to accept breaking down barriers on the bus, lunch counters, public accommodation, and things like that. But when you start talking about redistributing the wealth in the country, it was a whole other story. That's when the thing was going to change, because a certain amount of black economic could change the wealth in this country. And because if we would use the boycott, the same boycott we did to break down public accommodation to change the wealth by not buying or selective buying power, that means that somebody is going to have to change. You're going to come up with black stores, black restaurants, black banks, black savings and loans associations. So I think this is one of the most crucial part to the movement at that point.
I saw the breaker you got to do for all your needs and pray. I know change things, yes Lord, for you. This is what I like about it. Change things, prayer change things, go prayer change things, go prayer change things.
There's $200 billion that is in the black community. That's our money. That's our worth. This is obviously more money than in many nations, most nations in the world. However, we do not turn that money over. We do not spend that money with and on other black people. And I feel like until we do that, then the development of our community that all of us wish and long for will not take place.
Let's go, Dean!
And when I think of Dr. Martin Luther King, I think of an individual that had a world-embracing vision. And I feel that a great deal of the power that he assumed and had was due to the fact that his vision was world-embracing. I think his vision grew. It grew from that of looking at Montgomery, the state of Alabama, the nation, and then to the world. But the fact of the matter is, to me, that vision was one of the most important things that he had. And certainly, I feel one of the most important things that I have gained from his ministry. And I also believe that as more and more black people come to know that we are vital to the development and to peace in this world, that more of us will expand and develop our own vision which is born out of our own experiences, our own vision which is the vision of black Americans. The vision of white people, I think, is fine. The vision of other peoples, I think, are fine. I think when we bring the best of our visions together, and when we combine what it is we all want best for this world, then from that, I think, will come a society that is one that we sing about.